So I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, April 28th at 1:30 p.m. Is there any changes to the agenda as presented? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no additions to the agenda at this time. Thank you.
All right, can I get a member of council to move the agenda be adopted as presented?
So moved.
Councillor Hendricks. Discussion on the motion? All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Just as we get going, I'd like to make a couple of acknowledgements. We are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The city of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. And just before we get going, I'd like to make a quick statement on the flooding that's currently going on up in the north end of our province. I'd like to take a moment to express support to all those communities in the province that are currently affected by the flooding. The rising waters have already forced thousands of people from their homes in Wood Buffalo and other northern communities, and thousands more are standing by currently on an evacuation notice. And this is at a time where every community and agency in the province has been tested to their limits, and many Albertans are struggling with the impacts of COVID-19. So from Beaumont to those northern communities, please know that Beaumont stands with you and is ready to help you in any way that we can. I do have two proclamations to read today. The first one is the Workers' Compensation Board Day of Mourning, April 28th, 2020. Whereas April 28th is recognized across Canada as the day to mourn victims of workplace accidents and for the renewal of the pledge to make a safer workplace. And whereas in 2019, 165 Alberta workers died from injuries or disease related to the workplace. And whereas in honoring their memory, employers and workers can make a difference by working together to keep each other safe every day. And whereas the city of Beaumont recognizes April 28th as a day to mourn victims of workplace accidents and bring awareness for the need to establish safe conditions in the workplace for all, therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2020 as Workers' Compensation Board Day of Mourning in the city of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 27th day of April 2020. And we also have one more for the Professional Municipal Clerks Week from May 3rd to 9th, 2020. Whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And finally, whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations, it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim May 3rd to 9th, 2020 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week in the city of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this 27th day of April 2020. Thank you very much. So that brings us to item 3 on our agenda, our consent agenda. I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, regular council meeting minutes of March 10th, 2020. Item 5B, special council meeting minutes of March 13th, 2020. Special council meeting minutes from March 24, 2020. Item 5D, special council meeting minutes from April 7th, 2020. Item 5E, special council meeting minutes from April 21, 2020. And items 10A and 10B, Councillor Van Newkirk and Councillor Barnhart's reports respectively. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Stout. You're on mute still.
Hey. Hear me now. Can you hear me now?
Can hear you now.
Excellent. Sorry. Yes, I'd like to ask for an amendment to the March 24th minutes, please. So could we remove that from the consent agenda? It'll take
Okay.
no time at all.
We'll remove item 5C. Any further discussion on the motion? Great, seeing none, all in favor, say aye and raise your hands. Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. We have no items in the open forum today, which brings us to item 5C, special council meeting minutes of March 24th, 2020. Councillor Stout.
Yeah, just a quick clarification on that particular one on page 11 of 72, item 20/03/25. It's moved by Councillor MS that council approve an additional budget, blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming that's me. So I'm just like it to actually have my name rather than my initials. Or if it's somebody else for their name to be inserted.
Could be Munkoff Swain.
It could be Munkoff Swain. It could be Mayor Stewart.
Not Mayor Stewart. I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Stout. It is actually Councillor Munkoff Swain, and that was an error on my part. I will ensure that those minutes are adjusted. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Councillor Stout, you prepared to move the minutes as amended or the minutes as amended?
I am willing to move that we move the minutes as amended. Yes.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
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 All right, which brings us to item 7A, registered presentations. Today we have the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation in the house. So who will speak?
Hello there, Mr. Mayor.
Good day, Nancy. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for including me in your meeting today. Wow, this is, oh, there's my chair. Hello, Kathy. All right, am I able to take on the presenter role, or would you like me to speak to the slides as you work through them?
Good question.
I have a PowerPoint that is of the slides, but I can also just walk through each individual slide if you would prefer. So whichever's easier.
So can we go question to admin then? Can we share have the screen shared and the slides put up, or?
Yeah, Nancy, you can just share your screen. You know how to use the technology, right?
Yeah. So you're right. So I have permission, absolutely, and I am going to. Sorry, I just need to find my PowerPoint, and it should be, nope, that's the PDF. Wow, it might be just where I have it sitting. So just, and is the PowerPoint showing up?
It is.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay. Well, then this is exciting. Okay. Well, here we go. And I thank you again very much. So starting off with Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, our mission continues to be and has been now for quite some time to provide high quality, affordable housing and services to seniors, individuals, and families of modest means within the Leduc region, as we show. We do this within the housing spectrum, where the non-market housing is shown in the blue over top of the subsidized and affordable housing that we deliver through 9 different programs, and then our partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And we're looking forward to an opportunity to be doing a partnership in Beaumont one day. Then our tenants certainly do move into the market affordable and market housing, all of which forms part of what we call the housing spectrum and the service for all Canadians, let alone Albertans and those living in the city of Beaumont. The programs we offer, as I say, there are 9 different programs. They are through 4 major streams. So we have our central services that works out of our administration office and our maintenance shop, delivering and supporting programs in supportive living, seniors apartments, community housing and rent supplements, and the affordable housing. Trying to do a little color coding here so that we can see a connection throughout the presentation. Supportive living, the residential model is shown in blue. Directly government funded programs are shown in green. and government capital funded, though no operating funding are shown in yellow with the affordable. So in terms of our programs and services, we continue to provide supportive living, which is the root of the organization, targeted to a 65 and over age group of low income, something under $29,000 a year, and being functionally independent. These are provided through our 2 facilities in Plainview and Cloverleaf. So it's a meals, accommodation with hospitality services, and rent is based on 30% of income. Very similar program that we used to operate in Beaumont through what is now the Covenant Care Designated Assisted Living Facility. We are not able to provide any assistance there any longer, but are continuing to serve 1 client in Devon. We started with 15 back in 2011, and the program has been discontinued by the province, but we have 1 person that we are able to continue with. Seniors apartments, 65 and over is the target group. Again, modest income, so a slightly higher income level. The average is sitting somewhere around $1,800 a month, the minimum income, which certainly is much lower than the $41,000 a year. All 1-bedroom accommodation, rents again at 30% of income. Very similar program in the community housing targeted to families. And it has been the Linsford townhouses, which is now transitioning into the new Linsford Gardens, which we'll show you a little bit more about. Showing the maximum income levels for 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units. However, our families are all much below that. Similar in the rent supplement program, also funded by the province, 2 different programs. We're serving about 225 clients there. And then affordable housing where income is tested, but they are flat rate rents, and we have to be 10% below market. Our goal is 15 to 20. In terms of eligibility, all programs require Canadian citizenship. Income limits are set depending on each program. The residency piece, just wanting to point out in particular the supportive living where you have an elderly person that you're interested in supporting to come and live close to you. The family can meet the eligibility requirement because of the municipal requisition and the taxes being paid. Otherwise, we have a previous 12 months or 10 years of your life and similar functionality and suitability assessments being done. Assets, small amounts permitted in some housing, and it impacts the point score with our seniors apartments. In terms of location, we do have housing throughout the Leduc region, the majority in the city of Leduc, where 62% of the housing is there, larger population, but we have seen growth over the last 10 years in all of our communities, and really pleased to see a wide range of housing and services available to the Leduc region citizens. Our portfolio at December 31st, we are sitting with 533 housing units, or doors as we refer, and then the 222 as we're showing at December here of the rent subsidies. In the city of Beaumont, we have the 12 units in the senior self-contained building of Beauregard Manor, and then 35 affordable housing units. And at December 31st, we had 35 rent subsidies. The province has frozen that program and we're unable to bring new people in, but we are able to continue to support those who were already in the rent subsidy programs. Seniors and affordable housing. So the units that we have, there's Beauregard Manor, our little senior self-contained across the street from Place Beauséjour, built in 1981, and we took it on in 1994. And also Villa Beauregard here in Beaumont opened construction and opened in 2009 with the generous donation of land by what was the town of Beaumont at the time. Continues to provide housing. We though have at this moment 5 vacant units. The demand for certain size units is just different than what we have available. In terms of who we serve, we are serving singles, couples, families, seniors, you name it, it is the full range. Unfortunately, it also includes those who are very vulnerable from financial, mental health, physical health, and in some cases abuse. The common element that we have is that everybody is low income, could be as low as $8,400 a year. Monthly rents can be as low as $120 with market rents starting around $1,000. We don't do this alone. We have a lot of support through our FCSS partners, the Food Bank, Alberta Health Services, Mental Health, to name 3 of the major areas. Our program funding primarily coming from the tenants that we serve. Somewhere between 65 and 70% of our revenue comes from the tenants. The government funding is shown for the supportive living program, and then deficit funding for the seniors apartments and community housing, municipal requisition only applying to the supportive living. Vulnerable program certainly is the affordable program because we have no operating sources of funding other than our tenants. Overall, just under $9 million in terms of program funding. The requisition that relates to the supportive living program here is showing the 2020 and the 2019 for comparison purposes. Because this is based on equalized assessment and the city of Beaumont has shown some growth, we are seeing a reallocation of that from 19 to 20 that represents that increase in equalized assessment. In terms of our capital assets and development, we own, what have we got here, 8, 9, 10 residential properties and 3 commercial out of the 18 residential properties that we have, valued at about $42 million, changing daily, of course, as we're paying down debt, but we're not in a position to be able to leverage and build more affordable housing at this time. We still have to get the debt paid down. We've done the construction over the years through capital grants exceeding $25 million and been able to be that resource to the development in our communities and feeling very good about that. That has led to the growth from certainly back in 1963, but primarily through the early 90s and up until this year of a number of programs and throughout the communities. We've seen an expansion from single up to, as I say, we've got 9 different programs that fall into these categories. In terms of the change from being 100% of a seniors housing operation, where now the seniors represent 48 of those that we serve, 48%, but the seniors lodge program down around 22, 23%, showing that we have a full range of housing options for vulnerable people within the region. And in terms of the communities, starting in Leduc and working our way through, by the mid 1995, 96 is when we were able to say that we were serving folks in every one of our communities, and that's continued to grow over the last number of years. In terms of those that we house at the end of last year, 1,090. So again, you can see the smaller numbers showing on the senior side of things. Overall, we are serving families, and with that comes children. 31% of the people that we serve are actually children. In terms of our future direction as an organization, completing Linsford Gardens, it's expected to fill up this July, 36 additional units. Unfortunately, the municipal conversations have had to be canceled for this year. Look forward to those starting next year. Adding supports and services through partnerships. We've done this in Cloverleaf Manor in Warburg, where we've partnered with the George Spady Society and are serving a complex need client there, utilizing spaces that were vacant and providing a much needed service to those that client with that type of complex need. Plainview Place redevelopment is on the books. However, we have no funding from the province, and that's not looking too good in the short term here. Affordable housing expansion, we have land, but we don't have the resources. So we've got, my apologies for this slide coming on the way it did. Affordable housing, as I'd mentioned, with we have land in Leduc, Devon, and Kalmar, but no dollars at this point to be able to expand. Our recreation complex at Plainview, we are looking to do a small revitalization there, but that's now on hold because of the COVID. And it is my intention to finish with Leduc Regional Housing in 2020, and recruiting is taking place right now for a new CAO. The future development, Linsford is showing here on the left-hand side. The first phase opened in July of last year, 28 units, 36 units will be opening this July. Timing is absolutely awesome. We've got a number of families that are with us that have lost their jobs. Getting into deeply subsidized housing may be an option for them. The change in Plainview Place with their recreation complex is hopeful. And then the redevelopment of Plainview Place in the future with the expansion, which is now going to have to be rethought. How we are going to bring 236 people to a single site and still be able to manage in a risky, potentially risky environment is really going to have to be thought through. So more to be done on that. We do what we do as an organization with a board of directors appointed from the municipalities and one from the community, 2 board committees that are standing. Myself has been the executive director and 4 senior managers. A total of 70 staff work for Leduc Regional Housing, 2/3 of which are in our 2 supportive living facilities. We do all of that with the support and use of our values of professionalism, teamwork, compassion, innovation, and accountability. All of this is also done with a number of stakeholders and partners, our municipalities with FCSS planning, fire, you name it, working very closely with those departments, the Alberta government, seniors in housing, community social services, a variety of other agencies within the province, and also our community agencies, including all of those that you see here in Habitat for Humanity. Everything that we are doing within the region is to one day achieve our vision that every senior, individual, and family of modest means that resides within the Leduc region lives in comfortable, safe, and affordable housing. I'm sad to say that the municipal conversation has been canceled. However, look forward to that being rescheduled next year and the 7 municipalities being able to come together and again discuss what needs to happen within the region. But to that end, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much and happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation. It's always great to see the great amount of work that has gone on with your organization. And just before I open it up to council questions, I would like to take a couple minutes and recognize you for your work that you've done over the last 29 years with this organization and say thank you for all you've done. I mean, you've overseen some massive expansions and some massive changes. And on behalf of myself, City Council, administration, we really do appreciate everything you've done for us. And we wish you well in the future. And if there's anything we can do, let us know.
Well, I thank you very much for that. You're very kind. You know, Beaumont set the standard for the construction and the development within the region by the staff and the departments pulling everybody together when we did that project back in 2009 and say, you guys get priority, we're going to make this work. It was absolutely awesome. And I have to thank the current and all previous councils for all of their help just to make us successful and be able to do this. It really was a partnership. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. So quick question for you. How are we making out in the COVID-19 world?
We are COVID free today. Yay.
Woo.
We will, yes. We are, our staff are working very hard. Yeah.
All right. All right. So open it up to questions from members of council. Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Worship, and I echo your comments on your service. Thank you very much. And I'm the backup for Kathy on this committee, so it's a pleasure that she's always there. I get a chance to go once in a while, but she's very good at attending. So hopefully I'll get to go a couple of times in the future here. But one quick question for you. Municipal Conversation event in May, I'm looking forward to attend that. You mentioned next year. Is there no chance for doing it maybe in the fall? Is there any possibility? That's a very important event, as you are very well aware. Any chance for the fall possibly instead of next year?
That is, I think that's a very interesting idea. It has not been discussed to date because I think everybody was really up to their eyebrows in how to respond to this COVID situation. But I will certainly take that back to the board and share that as a suggestion that could be considered. And I'm sure Kathy's listening to this as well and will, I see her nodding, she will equally carry that idea forward. So thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. It has been a very worthwhile conversation for sure.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor Stewart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a quick reminder to you, if you wish to speak, just use your raise the hand button on the Zoom participant chat board, and we'll go from there. Councillor Hendricks.
I too want to echo my thanks. I was at the very first board meeting that Ms. Lang attended, and glad to be here at this point still.
I'm not sure what that says about either of us. But,
I know exactly. So yeah, obviously well done. Always enjoyed working with you. Certainly enjoyed all the effort that you put in. It speaks volumes for the quality that Leduc Foundation has enjoyed over all these years. So well done, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop working full time. I'm not sure this retirement word's coming in, but thank you very much, Perry. It's been a pleasure.
Right on. Thanks.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nancy, Ms. Lang, for all of the work. This time has been really difficult around the COVID experience that we're all having, and I'm just so thankful that Nancy and her staff are as well prepared as they are. And Nancy has kept us all on the board informed on a weekly basis, just as our CAO is doing with us here in Beaumont. And you know, we are worried, but we're not as worried as we would be if we didn't have somebody as competent as her at the helm. So I do want to give my appreciation as well, and know that Nancy is having difficulty thinking about leaving, and we are having even more difficulty than she is about thinking about her leaving. But that's what boards do. We have to plan ahead. So we'll keep you posted on how that whole recruitment is going. But appreciate all the support from council. And one question, Nancy, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of, again, telling us the vacancy issue in Beaumont. You know, we have these spaces, but why is it, I mean, I've asked you this many times, but maybe for the benefit of council, is there anything we can do to help fill those spaces and get the word out so that people use the spaces we have?
So the units that we have are, and let me back up. Each community is a little bit different. So we've got a few vacancies in Devon, but in Beaumont, we have 6 people, is my recall, that are looking for 1-bedroom accommodation. And what we have are 2- and 3-bedroom units. So we have offered people to take a 2-bedroom unit, but when we were not feeling we could do that permanently with someone that we don't know and what their tenancy is going to be, they were reluctant to do that. So we are looking at doing a little bit of a different program where we're going to go to some of our existing tenants. And if we have, parents with a couple of children that are in a 2-bedroom, if we were to move them to a 3-bedroom, give them the space, but charge them a 2-bedroom rate, and in a sense, reward them for a successful tenancy, but then free up that unit for someone that we can have a better go at. Call it a bit of a retention and an incentive program. We're going to look at doing some of these a little differently, because the vacancies are too long. If to have them for a couple of months is one thing, but to have them for 6 or 8 months, we've got people that need housing and we have vacancies that aren't working. So we need to do something different, and we're looking to be creative about that. I also would like to take a moment to thank you, Kathy, and I know your council have been very supportive, but you have been unbelievably supportive to me as an individual and to our organization in your role as chair. And I thank you very much for that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I see no further requests to speak, so we'll wrap up this portion. Once again, Nancy, thank you very much for the comprehensive presentation. It's always nice to see the work of the Leduc Foundation being successful. So wishing you and the foundation great success in the future.
Thank you very much, Mayor Stewart. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your meeting. Bye-bye.
Okay, so as we move into the remainder of the agenda, it's fairly heavy. We have a large number of approvals and bylaws. So I'm going to try to not limit debate and make sure everybody gets to speak, but let's try to get everybody through speaking once before we allow double ups, and we'll go from there. So brings us to item 8A, 2020 budget and 2020 to 2024 financial and capital plan amendment approval. I'm assuming Mr. Dowler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will try and make my opening comments as brief as possible, but hopefully can provide some context to the information in front of council today. The report itself and the recommendation is part of an annual amendment to the budget completed prior to the approval of the property tax bylaw. This is intended to deal with any significant changes that have occurred after the budgets were originally approved. Typically, this would include updates for real property assessment growth and finalization of the amount required for education property taxes. Included in the report this year are also some proposed amendments for capital and operating project carryforwards. These are projects approved in prior budgets that have not been completed, and so require some additional approval for the work to continue and be completed in 2020. In a typical year, these carryforward projects would have been presented to council for approval prior to the presentation of the budget amendment report, likely sometime in late February, early March, when we have some numbers finalized through the year-end process. The list of the carry-forward projects have been provided for council and the public in attachment 2. If you have a look at that attachment, the most significant project will be the construction of the BSRC. And so we need to obviously carry that one forward to be completed this year. Looking more specifically at the proposed amendments outside of the carry forward projects, the only amendment really being recommended by administration at this point in time is related to real growth from assessment. Included in the 2020 approved budget was an estimate of $570,000 for real growth. We've come to find out that the actual growth experienced in 2019, so impacting the 2020 tax roll, has been determined to be $706,800, so a difference of about $136,800. Administration in the report is recommending that this additional revenue be collected and offset with an expense or a transfer to the mill rate stabilization reserve. Overall, approving the amendments that are proposed for the carry forwards and the increase in the real assessment growth has no impact on the approved property tax increase at this point. And as a reminder, that approved increase for 2020 is 1.6%. And so that's where it would remain if everything is approved as presented. The other big piece of the report is some financial implications around COVID-19. Now, I'll preface this by saying these are high-level assumptions. The numbers that are included in attachment 3 are fairly substantial in a lot of ways, but certainly the main thing that I want to get across is the bottom part. And what you'll see is revenues equal expenditures. So the intent from administration would be COVID-19 would not drive a deficit for the organization at this point in time. But having said that, looking at some of the assumptions that are driving those scenarios, the first scenario that's been provided looks at and considers the existing health measures and restrictions that have reduced service levels and closed the facilities, estimating or thinking that those are in place until September. The second scenario considers these measures and restrictions are in place to the end of 2020. So based on those two scenarios, looking at the revenue side, which really has the most direct impact from those closures and the measures themselves, you can see things like rental revenues dropping due to those facilities being closed. Same with program revenues, cancellation of programs in some cases as there's no opportunity for facilities to hold those programs. And then you get into some other things like investment income. So due to market losses or a drop in rates. So as an example, the rate that we earned on our cash on hand went from about 1.9% to about 0.9%. So a significant decrease. We're fortunate that we don't have a ton of money on the investment side. So there is a bright side to this. The part of the revenues that are a little bit harder to quantify at this point in time relate to reduced business activity and some economic contraction. So that has not been considered in any of the scenarios that you see in attachment 3. From an expenditure perspective, there are some decreases for expenditures when you align them with the facility closures and the cancellation of programs. Over and above all of those direct expenses for programs and facility closures, there are some expenditure reductions that can occur that administration has more control over. And essentially what administration would be proposing is using some expense management in the categories of salary and benefits, materials and supplies, consulting services, even in the area of license, permit, fees, expenses, and then some further program expenses to offset any revenue shortfalls so that, again, the potential year-end position would be net zero or certainly not a deficit. So again, it's important to reinforce that although there's likely going to be an impact to revenue for city administration, we will be looking at every opportunity to manage the shortfall on revenue by adjusting the spending. And if necessary, the last resort would be proposing the use of the mill rate stabilization to, again, avoid a deficit position at the end of the year. Just to reiterate again, the information in the reports at a high level, administration will be continuing to monitor the situation as the year progresses. And as more information is known, this will be shared with council at least on a quarterly basis when we bring forward the quarterly financial updates that we'll be doing this year. So I think that's all my comments around the budget amendment. I have a few more on bylaws, but I'll probably stop there if we have any questions around the budget amendment report itself.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we'll do the amendment first, then we'll do each individual bylaw one at a time. So I appreciate the comprehensive report and the explanations surrounding COVID and and all the work that's done into that. So at this point, I am prepared to move that council approve the amendments to the 2020 capital and operating budgets as shown in attachment 1. And then we'll open it up for questions to members of council on the documents so it's open for clarification questions. Members of council? Struggling today. No questions. All right, seeing none, open it up for debate. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm struggling with technology there. Sorry, I'm not sure whether this is a question or a debate. I just wanted to take a look at the 2020 consolidated budget amendment amended, listed on page 25 of 72. There's a lot of information there, and when I look at these things, I'm really looking for the changes, the big changes. So you'd alluded to the increase in municipal tax revenue due to, but it's a small amount compared to the total. What really catches my eye in this, the two line items under capital expenditure, where we've gone on what's listed as community services from 5.3 million. We've got an increase of 7.3 million, taking it up to 12.67 million. And then on infrastructure, where we've got a 6.1 million increasing by 1.6 million, taking it up to 7.8 million. Just curious to know why the big increases in capital expenditure there, and could you speak to that, please?
Sure. In terms of the change column that you're referring to, Councillor Stout, the change in that column is really driven from attachment number 2. So page 27 of 72. If you actually look at the bottom of that sheet, capital carry forward, specifically if you're referencing community services as an example, the big adjustment that's included in that 7.3 would be the item that you see on page 27 of $6.7 million for the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center. So those changes specifically in the capital column or capital section of page 25 are really related to carry forward projects, which are listed on page 27. Again, these are projects that were approved in prior budgets that we need to complete the work on in 2020. And so need to bring forward some additional approval just to make sure that the budget is all there, so to speak, in order to complete the work in 2020.
Okay, thank you. So that's the effect of the capital carry forwards for ongoing projects, and if I add these totals up on page 27, I'm not going to do it now. I end up with, it's been differently allocated on the chart on page 25. Is that what I'm seeing? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That answers my question. Appreciate the clarification there.
Okay. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Through your worship to administration, just wanted to I guess bring some conversation to the operating carry forwards and the capital project carry forwards there. On the operating carry forwards, there's 16 items on the list, and the capital, there's 6 on the list, excluding the BSRC, which we're all aware. And I'm just wondering if council can somehow get an update on the status of all these projects. You know, there's quite a list of items that are there that we need money to carry forward to complete them. I think some of them are underway. I don't know if some of them aren't underway. You know, do we still in fact need these projects? Does administration have the you know, staffing resources enough to complete them? You know, might not be an answer for today, but I would like to see where we're at with getting all those items done. The list is quite long. Thank you.
Mayor? Yeah, we can certainly roll up where we're at with each one of those. I will tell you that we did vet them through our own filters and ask that very question. There were some on here actually that were carried forward from several years ago, and we got rid of them. But what we've been trying to do over the last couple of years is make this list disappear. Some things are beyond our control, smart fare, things like that. But for the most part, we're trying to get to a 90%, 80, 90% completion. But we have vetted these and believe that they need to continue, but we'll certainly provide an update on each one.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks. And I don't think it has to be overly extensive. You guys have created some other documents that you're providing as updates and stuff, and a template such as that would be great. So yeah, that's my questions for now, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Okay. So seeing no further hands raised, are we prepared to vote on the question, or does members of council still have questions or debate items?
Good to vote.
Good to vote. All right, so call the question. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 And so that carries unanimously. Which brings us to business item 8A, 2020 budget, sorry, business item 8B, notice of motion, Councillor Van Newkirk. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Probably easiest just to deal with them one at a time. Go through the first and then the second. Is that fine?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. So the first notice of motion I put forward was that council direct administration to identify funding resources and a suitable location for a cenotaph monument in Beaumont that symbolizes the sacrifices of all Canadian Armed Forces personnel who have served Canada in time of war. Yeah, just to speak to that a second, again, keeping it simple. With this notice of motion, I'm asking for the support of council to direct administration to identify an appropriate location and funding mechanism to create a cenotaph in Beaumont. This would be an important symbol of our commitment as a community to honoring the sacrifices made in the past and paying respects to those who are currently serving for our country. And looking for the support of council in that regard to get something like that going for Beaumont. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of Councillor Van Newkirk from members of council?
Mayor Stewart?
CAO?
Yeah, is Paul, are you on this call? I think you are. If so, can you just weigh in for a second on where this is? Because I believe you've done some work on it already. I just want to make sure we don't have any redundancy.
I am here through your worship to Councillor Van Newkirk. Yes, I've started to look at this. I'm going to bring back some concepts of possible locations for a cenotaph. As well, we've done some investigation onto funding through Veterans Affairs on that. And once we have a location and what we're actually doing, we could submit a grant application. I can't remember the maximum amount of funding available for that, but we're certainly looking at this.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So this is work that's already in motion. Awesome. Further comments or questions from members of council? Councillor Moncaswayne.
Yeah, thanks. And appreciate the update, Paul. We'll keep you on here. So great. And thanks, Steve, for bringing this forward. I was ready to support it, but hearing the update from Paul, it may look like we may not need it. But I think part of the impetus for you, Councillor Van Newkirk, for bringing this forward was to, make sure we get this done in a timely manner, obviously with everything going on, line it up with a list of projects. But is this, from a priority perspective, is this something that is with your group there, Paul, or have you looked at where this kind of falls in line with everything else that we're asking you to do on your list?
Through your worship to Councillor Moncalfe-Swain, I think we've got 5 minutes at the end of the year we can probably throw at this, but no, in seriousness, once we have some concepts of a location, I think we can gauge from there. We don't have it ranked anywhere high, medium, low at this time.
Yeah, I guess my point is here that whether we're going to vote or not, we'll leave it to Councillor Van Newkirk, his motion. But I think the point of bringing this forward is to make sure that that administration is clear if we vote for it, that this is something that council wants to do, and we've got the support to, as opposed to something that you might be thinking about in the background. I think maybe I'll let Councillor Van Newkirk clarify a bit more, but I think that's the point of the notice of motion process. And so, yeah, I think I would support it, whether you're going to withdraw it or not, Councillor Van Newkirk. I'll leave that to you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this comes, because it's an important piece for our community.
Yeah, you bet. No, the intent of the notice of motion is to make sure that it gets on a list, is voted on, has council support, and is made a priority moving forward amongst all the other priorities that are out there. But just to formalize the ask and be able to get some updates on that. So I would like to keep the notice of motion active and have a vote and see if council supports that moving forward.
Councillor Danlock?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would speak in favor of the motion as it continues from Councilor Van Newkirk. I think it's an excellent idea, and we've been talking about it for a while now. Making it more formalized is a good idea, and I think it's a great addition to our community. Just a very quick suggestion to Mr. Suter, if you may be considering locations with the new Sports and Recreation Center in the front where the circular parking is, there's on the diagrams, there's a round sort of a circular spot for some trees or something. Perhaps depending upon the sizes of the cenotaph, having in front of the rec center may be a focal point that could be a good possibility. I'm not sure where your locations are, but of course, the size that could affect that location. If it's really large, may not. But if it's smaller size, it may work well to have it there for future Remembrance Day services. In case we have bad weather, we can go inside of the field house instead of being outside in the nice new parking lot we'll have with the new rec center. So just a little suggestion for your look for consideration, please. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, let's try not and engineer this today. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm in support of the motion as well. I think it's actually long overdue and fills a gap that should be filled. If Councillor Van Newkirk hadn't brought this forward, I was thinking along the same lines and would probably have done the same thing. So, yeah, completely in support. Just wanted to add my support to it.
Okay. Councillor Margolis-Swain.
Yeah, just a last comment, and I think would be, so obviously in support of the motion, I'd be interested in at some point getting a list of these projects and seeing administrations, I guess, their thoughts in terms of ranking priority around this. And we kind of made a joke before, Mr. Suter there about 5 minutes at the end of the year, but I'd be just curious at some point to be able to see what's all on your list. We've asked for, there's a lot on there, I realize that. But it'd be good to kind of similar to Councillor Van Newkirk's theme before, just to get an idea of, okay, what are these projects and how is administration kind of ranking them in terms of priority, to see how much effort and time you're putting into various things. I'd hate to get into a spot where we're kind of shuffling and moving projects around, but I'm just curious on an update from administration about how you see that, just so I have a better picture in my mind about what you guys have identified as the priority out of all the things that we've identified.
All right, CEO, you get your hand up.
No, I was just going to add a couple things what Margolis-Swain is talking about. I think I talked about it in one of our updates, but certainly a budget. And we are coming up with the capital and operating project dashboard, which you'll be able to see a snapshot at any point in time. We're actually beta testing it this week for the internal document and then the external document. So it'll give us all a better snapshot at any point in time of what we got on the go, and then council can decide on priorities. You did make a comment, and it's not included in the motion, about this being a significant priority or something along those lines. What was the word that you used? But that's not reflected in the motion. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Define major priority was the word you used.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, if I said major priority, let's just say priority. The reason I want to get this voted on and out there is to make sure it gets on a list and gets prioritized. So, yeah.
Okay, so for my own clarification, the motion in front of us is that council direct administration to identify funding resources and a suitable location for a cenotaph monument in Beaumont that symbolizes the sacrifices of all Canadian Armed Forces personnel who have served Canada in time of war. Did you modify that to include a priority statement?
No, not at all. I read it word for word.
Okay, fair enough. Because with all the other things, well, I agree that this is a very important item for our community. In light of the COVID-19 world, it may be not one of those ones that we push too hard right now. But seeing no further comments, are we prepared to call the question? All right, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries. Councillor Van Newkirk, your second notice of motion. Your second motion from your notice of motion.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Second notice of motion I had put forward reads as follows, that council direct administration to develop a strategy in support of regional collaboration to host other municipalities in Beaumont and learn from their experiences through collaboration with the objective of improving the viability and long-term sustainability for residents in Beaumont. And just to speak to that for a second, this notice of motion was presented before we had to deal with the COVID-19 worldwide pandemic. The basis and overall need for this notice of motion remains, as Beaumont must continue to be collaborative in the region. We must also be able to learn from the project success of our regional partners, as well as to examine any of the project learnings that they are willing to share. In order to do this, Beaumont needs to be willing and able to get together with our regional neighbors and share. However, the purpose of this notice of motion is to put pen to paper and create a plan that would detail such items as who would we collaborate with, why would we collaborate with them, when and how often should we meet, what types of venues would be appropriate for the meeting. Are we meeting in a boardroom? Are we meeting at a park? Are we meeting at a local venue? And that might be determined by the goal of the feedback or the collaborative information we're looking to have. All in all, despite COVID-19, there is a need to complete meaningful and purposeful.
Oop, we lost Councillor Van Newkirk. Just give him a second to see if his computer unfreezes. You there, Councillor? Okay.
I'll give him a quick call, John.
Yeah, give him a quick buzz.
Hang on.
Okay, so he's gone. He's probably relogging back in.
John, yeah, if I try and chat to him, it shows him as not in the meeting currently.
Yeah, no, he's currently logged out. So
Yeah, John, I got a hold of him. He's just having an issue. He'll try and log on back as quick as he can.
okay, so we will give him a couple seconds. So general discussion on the motion while we're waiting for Councillor Van Newkirk to come back. Seeing none.
I guess I'll go, John. If you don't mind, I guess.
Go ahead.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just trying to fill some space. So I mean, the question is really around, again, coming up with the comments around priorities and where does this fit for administration, given everything that's going on. So I think important for Councillor Van Newkirk to get it on the agenda and voted on. But again, to your earlier comment, would fall low on the priority list. I think it's a worthwhile exercise to go through, whether or not the other communities willing to participate or not is another thing. But good to have a strategy, and I think this council has done a really good job, building those relationships with regional partners. But always good to have a strategy. I wouldn't again. Not get into ranking them, but it wouldn't be high on my list of things for administration to look into. But anytime we can connect with our neighbors, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I sort of have similar comments. I think it's a great idea. I'm just not in it. For me, it falls into that nice to have category. So I'm prepared to vote in favor of it today, as long as we recognize that it's not a very high priority for our administration at this time, and it may be months, not weeks, before they come back to us.
Yeah, I think there'll be organic situations where things will come up, like the opening of the rec center and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure we're going to invite our regional partners, and so don't need a full-fledged strategy around that. But I know that's not all the intention that he's looking for. So yeah, I think I'm prepared to support the motion, but just with the qualifiers around priorities, I guess.
Further comments from other members of council?
They got my hand up.
Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would echo your comments as well as Councillor Monkoff-Swain's. Conceptually, I like the idea of the motion. I have no problem with it. I think I'm in favor of moving it forward. I'm just concerned about maybe more specifics of how to make that happen. I think it's a great conceptual statement, And as Councilman Swain mentioned, we are doing a great job in the region building relationships, and we're going to continue to do that. The motion does lack some specifics, but conceptually, I'm in favor of moving it forward. But as you have both mentioned, priorities are high for us on other issues. So conceptually, I'm there. Practically, it may be difficult to implement in this fiscal year. Thank you.
Might be a Q4, Q1 item for next year.
I think you're probably on track with that. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm always in support of regional collaboration. I'm a little concerned about the amount of time the administration would put to developing a strategy. So perhaps that's a question for the administration. The way it's reading right now, I just wonder how much energy and time and resources they would have to put to it. And that, of course, is some of the questions I think Councillor Van Nieuwkerk was going to start to answer. It sounded like he had some more clarity around that, but maybe the CIO would like to weigh in. I see his hand going up.
CIO.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Barnhart, through the mayor to the rest of council. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. These regional meetings, the traditional regional meetings we've been having, they take a lot of resources to set up. And what we've been finding is our regional partners, we can either not nail down a date or they're not interested. It takes a lot of staff time. That's not to say it's not important. We have been trying to set up 2 regional meetings for probably 6 months, one with Leduc County and the other with the smaller towns, and it's difficult. Schedules are really tough. So this is a heavy time commitment. I'll tell you that right now.
So from a resourcing perspective then, because we've batted around Q4, Q1, and this being a low priority. Can somebody let Councillor Van Nieuwkerk back into the meeting? Just got a text. Anyway, back to my question. This being a low priority for Q1 thing, is this something that if we approve would fit into that time frame, or is this something that you just don't have the time to do right now?
We'll fit it into whatever time frame you want. The question was how much time does it take to do this, and it takes a lot of effort, especially when some of your regional partners don't want to come.
Well, we're just talking about developing the policy, not actually inviting anybody yet.
Sure. Do you want to weigh in, Kendra?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have one question, and Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, you mentioned sharing, and that would be the purpose of this, to share lessons learned. I'm just wondering if you can provide some more clarification around what you're hoping to share and to gain, so that we could know how to frame that better if council did decide to proceed with this.
Yeah, you bet.
Bring you up to speed, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. We did have a bit of a discussion while you were off. Council was generally supportive. We don't feel it's a very high priority at the moment, so work to be done sort of Q4, Q1 kind of thing. And so we're sort of having a discussion around that. So if you wanted to answer Ms. Raymond's questions or continuing on with your first one, then please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, you bet. Where did my computer cut me off at? Was I all the way done speaking, or was I mid-sentence? Or
you were mid-sentence about, you had just mentioned about why we should be doing this about halfway through that part of the speech.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll just kind of speak to it ad hoc then. Basically, what I was hoping to achieve here is to have a plan to be able to collaborate with our regional neighbors and a strategy on how we would do that and why we would do that. It would go beyond, hey, let's have municipality X into Beaumont and host them for dinner. Well, that'd be great. Let's have fun. Let's do that and let's go have dinner. But I think that we should have a plan around looking at the projects that we're working on per se. And if Stony Plain is looking at doing a new rec center and we have lessons to learn from them and they have lessons to learn from us, we could collaborate on stuff like that. We went on a tour to Spruce Grove and saw some of the great work that Mayor Houston and council have done there. And probably there are some lessons learned or opportunities to gain further information from their council and administration on, some of the successes and maybe even pitfalls they've had along the way. So I think that having every time we're looking to do something, or when we're trying to look to do something, we look around and say, hey, who has done this before? have our regional municipal neighbors went through this process before, and what have they learned? I think all in all, we need to do a better job of, getting together with our municipal neighbors, and this council has definitely done that. But I just wanted to put a pen to paper on a strategy that if we were going to meet with someone, there would be a purpose for them and for us, and there would be a rationale as to why we're spending the taxpayer dollar to do that. So that's the strategy I was hoping to be developed in the background.
Ms. Raymond, that answer your question?
I think so. We'll take that away, depending on the outcome of this notice of motion. Thank you.
Okay. Further comments from other members of council? Council Hendricks?
Worship, friendly amendment to add perhaps school boards and trustees.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that would be, regional partners, school boards and trustees. Yeah.
Councilor Barnhart?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Councilor Van Nieuwkerk, for bringing this forward. I think it's an excellent discussion. What's going through my mind is that we have already quite a number of collaborative boards that we all sit on, and initiatives, whether it's EMRB or the water, the wastewater, the housing group. And I mean, if you're looking for an overall strategy, I get that. And when you mentioned about having a number of projects on the go and getting feedback from other municipalities about how they're working on different things, I know that our municipality does that on a case-by-case basis as well. So I get what you're asking for, but I'm just concerned about when we're going to do it and who's going to do it and how much time that's going to take. And that was kind of where my concerns were raised before. So I know the administration has asked the question, and I don't think we've got an answer yet. And I'm just wondering if before we say this is a priority for any particular period of time, we get a sense of how much resource it's going to take to develop that strategy. That's my concern, because we're going to a lot of meetings now without that overall strategy. If this is an overall strategy, will that change what we're doing, or will it add another set of meetings? We go to a lot of meetings already. So I'm just wondering how that all fits together and how much energy and time that takes from administration. So I'm supportive. I just don't know exactly how it's going to work.
CAO, further comment?
Sure. Councilor Barnhart, the rest of council, developing a policy, if that's what the expectation is, that's one part of it. The notion of collaborating with our regional partners on rec facilities, arts, and any of those things, and Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we do that as part of our project. So it's much easier to do that admin to admin than it is to do elected official. That's when it becomes difficult to connect people's schedules. But as far as developing a policy, we can do that if you're going to set a target of Q4, and then we can, once the policy is approved, have a better feel for how much work it's going to involve.
Follow up, Councilor Barnhart?
Yeah, yes, thank you, CAO. I think I'm reading strategy different than policy. So if we're saying those are synonymous, then that fits. And I would support the development of that direction before we determine what the events are going to be in addition to what we're already doing. So I think I see where you're going with that. But Councillor Van Nieuwkerk perhaps wants to clarify his intent.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk?
Yeah, you bet. I think like what I would say is this is as complicated as we're going to make it here. When we want to meet with our regional neighbors, I put this forward to try and ensure that we have a purpose and a reason for why we would do that. We've been invited to different municipalities, and there's been a purpose and a reason for that. We've received tours, we've received updates, those kinds of things. I just want to make sure that there's a mechanism here for us to host our regional neighbors, and something that says if you're going to host a regional neighbor, then you should have a plan with what you're going to do. What's the goal of what you're doing? Where are you going to do it? And those types of things. So I think it's only as complicated as we need to make it. If a mechanism to do that already exists, I guess let me know. If not, then if a policy is the best way to do that, then maybe that's the best way. I'm not sure. I would look to admins for direction on that. Thanks.
CAO.
Sorry, I was discussing something with Kendra. I didn't get the question, Councillor Van Nuckerk.
The question would be, is a policy how we accomplish making sure that we have a plan that is put together if we were to host municipalities? Thanks.
Yeah, okay, then this is a little different than what I'm reading in the notice, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. If it's a matter of, in the interest of keeping it straightforward, if it's a matter of identifying a list of protocols that would trigger when we collaborate with our regional partners and how frequently, that's a different story. That's even more straightforward.
Yeah, straightforward is the way to go. This is only going to be as complicated as we make it.
I agree.
Okay, Councillor Monkoff Swain, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I would just say, regional collaboration and leadership is one of our strategic pillars that we've put forward. I think we're doing this. My concern with this, and I obviously like the idea, my concern with this is if we're looking at realistically, no one's going to be looking at doing anything outside their municipality for the next 6 months, right? And then we get into election year, and then is anyone really going to be in that kind of mode, or are they just going to be bunkered down in their community? So I think, the fact that this is part of something that we discussed as our strategic plan for this term, and obviously clearly a high priority for us. I think what I'm hearing you say, Steve, is you're just looking for just a strategy. Okay, these are the 5 or 6 things that we want to collaborate regionally with folks on. Who's going to come? What are they going to do? Just to kind of bring that together. Is that it seems pretty straightforward. We're spending a lot of time on this item, so maybe we just vote on it and move forward. But is that as simple as you're looking for here? Just a kind of a breakdown of what we're going to do, not necessarily a policy of how we're going to do it or when we're going to do it, but just these are the things that we want to talk to other municipalities, invite them in, and have a strategic conversation with them about. That's how I'm hearing it? Am I wrong there?
Yeah, I think that that would be a piece of it, is that if we're doing items A, B, and C, and another municipality has done A, B, and C, let's invite them in and talk about it. That's definitely a piece of it. The other piece is what I'm trying to avoid here is hosting another municipality for dinner at Chartier and not have a defined outcome. That's what I'm trying to avoid here.
So
have we like to see something that is a checkbox of plans that if we're hosting something.
Yeah, and I get that. I haven't seen us not do that, I guess would be my question. Whenever we've had, whether it's a municipality or Jesperson come into town or whatever, I've always seen a strategy that goes with it. So maybe I'm not quite sure on what we're missing in order to change, I guess, here. Does that make sense? Like I get the intent. I know what we're trying to do. What you're trying to do is to make sure that every time we've got a regional partner coming in, there's a strategy, or we got to look at and say where are things that we can collaborate with the region on. So obviously I'm on board with that. That makes sense. Just are we doing it already, or?
I gotta admit, I kind of agree with you, Councillor Monkoff Swain. We sort of naturally do that now. So I guess it's a good question. What problem are we trying to solve?
Yeah, what I would say is if there, I would say that administration has continually done a better job with communications. For instance, the beginning of this term, it was not a strong side of administration at all. We're in a better place now than we were. Let's say there's a changing of the guard, and the folks that normally have, without direction, done a good job at doing that. Where's the change? What makes them do that again? Besides, it feels like it's the right thing to do. So, like you said, really, regional collaboration is a pillar. I didn't actually think it would be a very complicated thing to do, and maybe I'm not articulating my thoughts well enough, but I feel that if I put pen to paper in an hour, I could have something to put in front of, a decision-making tree of some kind that we could put here. So I'm failing to see the complicated nature of this. I think we should just have a vote. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Stout, you're going to get final comments here because you've been waiting patiently, and then we're going to call the vote.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, I'd lowered my hand because you'd asked the question I was going to ask, which was, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? Firstly, and secondly, Councillor Monkoff-Swain had also raised, it's very unlikely that we'll, if I'm understanding this correctly, that we'll be able to do anything to solve whatever that problem is intermunicipally in the next 6 months, I'm thinking. So I'm not sure what the problem we're solving is, and I'm not sure when we'll be able to solve it. So I'm not sure that I do support this. I understand. In principle, I have no objection to improving our inter-regional, intermunicipal collaboration. I think that's a good idea, and I support that part. But I'm not sure that we're actually solving any problems here, or have a realistic time frame in which to solve them. So I'm thinking I don't really support this as currently defined. And in fact, from what you, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk was saying, I'm wondering if you could write out something in an hour or so, if that might better be presented to council after you'd done that.
Okay, so yeah, we can look at that later about putting it together. I'm going to call the vote right now. So all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. And keep your hands up.
I'll say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed, raise your hand and say aye. 1, 2, 3.
Aye.
4 to 3. Councillors Barnhart, Stout, and Mayor Stewart opposed. All right, that brings us to item 9A, bylaw 977-20, 2020 fees and charges amendment. Having said that, quick question. We've now been at this just over an hour and 15. Do we want to take a 5-minute break to stretch our legs? Otherwise, I'll take it.
I'd like to take a break.
All right, we'll call a 5-minute recess and then we'll pick this back up. All right, so call the meeting back to order. Which brings us to item 9A, bylaw 977-20, 2020 fees and charges amendment. Mr. Dollar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some quick overall comments on the bylaws themselves, just to provide a little bit of context of what we have in front of us today. There are obviously 5 different bylaws in front of council. 3 of the bylaws relate to updating bylaws to reflect the required changes based on previous council approvals. So this would include the tax penalty bylaw, waste and wastewater services bylaws, both of those reflecting changes required to allow residents to defer payment without penalty. And then we have the borrowing bylaw for the BSRC project, which has been updated to reflect the additional 2.7 million that council approved in additional funding for the project. The other 2 bylaws in front of council today relate to primarily the budget itself and the budget amendment. So the property tax bylaw has been drafted and includes the proposed amendments that were just approved by council. And so approving the bylaw today will allow administration to deliver the property tax notices to the public and property owners by the end of May. And then we have the fees and charges bylaw, which has been updated with some minor corrections from what was presented to council on February 25th, as well as somewhat more significantly, it has the updated fees related to the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center. With that, I'll open it up to council for discussion and consideration.
All right, so as we move, we'll just do it one bylaw at a time. So for bylaw 977-20, we're looking for first, second, and third reading today, just so council's clear on what we're doing. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading?
So moved.
Councillor Hendricks from the first reading. Open it up for discussion and debate. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Through you to administration. Just a quick question on the BSRC fees. Did administration receive any feedback from user groups on the proposed rental pricing that's in front of us today? Thank you.
Hi there. We have not presented this to the user groups at this point in time. We did not have any of that kind of engagement.
No, sorry. It's public information on the, it's posted, right? And so user groups would have access. I'm just wondering if in the time that it's been put out there, if anyone had said anything. Thank you.
Your worship, sorry, to Councillor Van Newkirk. No, we have not heard any feedback as far as coming through the rec department.
Thank you.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to admin, is at the time these fees were last brought in front of council, there was some discussion regarding making the fees for the BSRC comparable with similar facilities in nearby municipalities, notably Leduc. Now those fees are back with us again. Could you comment on if they're comparable or not, or whether that was contemplated?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Stout. Yes, we did take a look at Leduc's fees, and ours are very comparable with theirs. We did update ours to be a little bit closer aligned with theirs. We did compare it along with council's recommendation, looking at the city of Edmonton, city of Leduc, and the city of Wetaskiwin. City of Leduc is by far more comparable than it is the other facilities, and so our fees have been very closely aligned with Leduc's.
Great, thank you. That was what I was hoping you were saying.
Fair enough. As well, when we were discussing the BSRC fees at the last time, we had also discussed about having a conversation surrounding council having some philosophy on the building as to how we wanted to roll it out to user groups. Because we had also discussed the ideas of perhaps some block booking discounts and things like that. I don't see those taken into account. So where did we land on that?
Yes, through to your worship. We did do some research on block bookings. What we did is we looked at as many facilities as we can that had block bookings. We did not find anyone that was doing facilitating any kind of block booking policy to provide any discount to users. What we did find was that every facility has a little bit of a different definition of block bookings. For example, Strathcona County has bookings over 3 or more month period would be considered block bookings. Wetaskiwin would be 1 or more hour. Edmonton Soccer Association facilities is 6 or more bookings at a time. So everything that we're finding, we didn't really have one clear definition on bookings or that consistent best practice around the region. So it was not our recommendation to put a block booking into our fees and charges.
Okay. I got to admit, though, at some point, I still want to be able to have this discussion surrounding philosophy of how we're going to roll out block bookings to our community user groups and have that fulsome discussion on that particular fee and on how we want to do this. Councillor Munkoff-Swain.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And I think the intent here is to ensure that, obviously, that we'll use the field house as the example. There's a shortage across those. Those get booked up well in advance across the city of Edmonton, the capital region. And what we don't want to do is spend $29.5 million on a new facility and then not have an opportunity for our local residents and teams to be able to book priority access, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so what we don't want to have is teams from Edmonton just getting in maybe a little bit earlier and then booking it out. And so the taxpayers of Beaumont are paying this, but they're not able to access it. So I don't know if, obviously a discount is in consideration, but it's all part of that discussion was also how do we ensure that, residents of Beaumont teams have, I guess, priority access to that facility before we kind of open it up, if that makes sense. So I can't, again, to the mayor's point, I don't, this is kind of, this is fees and charges, we're looking at numbers here, but the philosophy piece is an interesting discussion that I think needs to have. I was waiting for this discussion to bring it up, so I appreciate the mayor acknowledging that point here. So I guess the question is, is there a mechanism to ensure that Beaumont residents, clubs, teams have priority access to the sports facility that we're paying $29.5 million for?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Monkoff-Swain, we do have that. That has been worked out. We do have the approved allocation policy that does lay out priority. Priority number one would be local youth, nonprofit groups. And then there's a priority schedule that goes down from there. But locals are by far getting the first priority over non-locals.
Great to hear. How do I or the community see that?
Didn't we just pass that policy not too long ago? Ms. Cuthbert?
Yes,
I guess
yes, it was just approved. I feel like a few months ago. I apologize on the date.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a few years ago, just last week. Sorry, apologies. Could you just maybe circulate that? I know I've had others and have asked me about it and I haven't been able to find the forward on the right spot. So yeah, I appreciate that. If you could just forward that around. Thank you.
Yeah, time's sort of blending together right now for everybody. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the staff for bringing this forward again. I just wanted to mention the co-kitchen fees. I think it's on the very last page. My question just was, is this a new set of fees for those that are using it on a monthly basis, or is it, was that there before? I just didn't notice it, I don't think. Maybe Amanda, could you speak to, Ms. Cuthbert, could you speak to the changes that were made there so that enables people to use that kitchen on a regular basis?
Yes, of course, through your worship to Councillor Barnhart. Yes, what's been proposed is to try and increase the usage in the kitchen as the community center. This is a new set of fees, so this would be separate from our regular fees. They are a little bit discounted compared to our kitchen fees that we currently have. This would be targeted at people who are going to use the kitchen I believe it's 4 or more times in 1 month. They would receive this discounted rate. And the intention is to have local businesses or local users be able to use that as a commercial kitchen on a more regular basis. So we have had quite a bit of interest in it and conversations that's been happening. So I think it is separate to answer your question.
I did check in to see if this was what some of the users were looking for, and the answer was yes. So in my very small sample, it looks good from here. Thank you.
Councillor Stout, followed by Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Cuthbert again. I noticed the climbing wall is not included in the fees. Is that because it's going to be funded? It's going to be charged for separately, or does the all access pass include the climbing wall?
Yes, you're correct. At this point in time, there's conversations going on with an external group to come in and run the climbing wall. So we do not have those fees. If that was the option that we were looking at going with, then that provider would provide those fees. At those fees, pardon me.
Okay, so can I just follow that up then? So if I was planning to go to the BSRC to use the climbing wall, I would have to pay a separate fee from any membership or admission fee that I would otherwise pay.
Yes, Councillor Stout, yes, at this point in time, well, I won't say yes at this point in time. There is, part of our team is looking at working with that external group to bring on a climbing wall provider. If that's the case and that's the way it happens, then yes, you would pay for a membership to use the Sport and Rec Center at our guest services, and then to use the climbing wall, you may have to pay additional fee to use that service.
But that's not included in the schedule in front of us before. Okay, so that's an item for discussion another day. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, it goes back to, I think, that philosophical discussion still needs to be had. I sort of lost track of where I was at. So Councillor Daniluk, followed by Councillor Hendricks, followed by Councillor Barnhart, and then we're going to try and wrap conversation on first reading of this particular bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Just a quick follow-up to Amanda's comments. As you know, I sit on the committee for CCBCC on behalf of council, and one of our objectives was to make use of the very underutilized commercial kitchen within the facility. And working with economic development and Rob Mackin, we came up with a proposal in front of you now with the bylaw to be very innovative and try and create ways to make that kitchen more utilized. So the fees are very competitive based on the marketplace. In fact, discounted slightly to try and get some revenue in that facility and make it more useful. So I hope you all will endorse that part of the fees and means. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hendrick, final comments?
Just a question on the CCBCC and the liability insurance requirements for the users. How has that been accepted by those who are renting?
Until now, I think it's been working well. The kitchen, we have kind of our commercial users. There's been nobody who's brought that up as a concern. So I think that's been working well up until this point.
Okay, so individual users, community groups, there's been no pushback on that liability issue?
I'm going to step in because I believe I'm going to think back, and I believe the recommendation from council was as far as our commercial users and our users that are going to be serving alcohol in the halls were the ones that were going to be required to provide the insurance. Not every one-off user is providing us with liability insurance at this point in time. So the way that's rolled out, it has been positive, and I think we've had good uptake on it. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So I think at one council meeting, this discussion came up, and the issue is whether or not we just would have a wrap-up liability that would cover everyone. And we're going to look into whether those costs were prohibitive or not, but I'll leave it there. So thanks.
Okay. So call the question on first reading. All those in favor, raise your hands and say aye.
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 A member of council willing to move second reading. Councillor Stout.
So moved, your worship.
Question on the motion. Seeing none. Members of council, if you're in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 It carries unanimously. I'd like to move that council give unanimous consent to third reading. All in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Carries unanimously. So member of council willing to move third reading on this proposed bylaw. Councillor Danlock.
So move, your worship. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. Members of council, if you're in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Passes. So just a question to admin, what do I need to do to get this philosophical discussion scheduled?
Your worship, if I can step in there, I was just going to ask that very question. So that is the direction that we're hearing today, that we'll bring that back to a committee of the whole, if that's what you want to talk about with climbing wall, how we roll that out, and as well as more philosophical on local block bookings, all definition of such. We can bring that back to committee of the whole if that's what council wishes.
That'd be great. I think that would be the desire of council to have that discussion.
Good idea.
I think that might be a good opportunity to also talk about, how we're updating it, how we're going to roll it out and stuff like that. So
fair enough. Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to bylaw 979-20 Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center borrowing bylaw amendments. Mr. Dollar, any further conversation?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. Do I have a member of council willing to move first reading?
So moved.
Councillor Hendricks. All right, questions for members of council, discussion on the motions?
No.
Okay, you guys gonna have to give me a second. I gotta catch up with my paperwork. All right, so seeing no discussion on the motion, all those members of council in favor of first reading, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Danlock.
So move, your worship. Thank you.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, members of council in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. I'd like to move that council provide unanimous consent to move directly to third reading today. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. So member of council willing to move third reading.
I'll move third reading.
Councillor Stout. Discussion on the motion. Starting to feel like a broken record. All right, all members of council willing to vote in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. All right, that brings us to bylaw 97620, property tax, supplementary property tax. Mr. Dowler, any further comments?
No, nothing really further. Just a reminder that the property tax bylaw that's in front of council aligns with the budget amendments that were just approved earlier in the meeting. So again, this allows us to go out and collect the appropriate amount of taxation revenue for 2020.
All right, I appreciate the comments. So once again, we're looking for first, second, and third reading today. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Danlock.
So
Discussion on
moved, first reading. Thank you.
discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those members of council in favor of first reading, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Stout.
I move second reading, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all members of council in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. I'd like to move that council give unanimous consent to move directly to third reading on bylaw 976-20. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading? Councillor Danlock.
Thank you. Third reading.
Discussion on the motion. All those members of council in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Carries unanimously. Brings us to bylaw 980-20 tax penalty bylaw amendment. Mr. Dowler, last chance for comment.
No further comments, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so once again, we're looking for first, second, and third reading. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading on bylaw 980-20? Councillor Van Newkirk. Discussion on the motion or questions for admin?
No.
All right, seeing none, all those members of council in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councillor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those members of council in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. I'd like to move that council provide unanimous consent to move to third reading on bylaw 980-20. All those council members in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading?
So moved, Your Worship.
Councillor Stout, sorry, Bill.
That's okay.
I'll move third reading then. Your Worship.
All right, no problem. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Thank you, and that carries unanimously. Brings us to our fifth and final bylaw of the day. Bylaw 981-20, water and wastewater services bylaw amendments. Is there a member of council willing to move first reading? Councillor Hendricks.
So moved.
Discussion on the motion?
Actually,
Sorry.
can I raise a quick question?
Sure.
Regarding administration, with deferring these, and I guess this also applies to property tax as well. There must surely, to my way of thinking, be an increased chance of default when the bills finally fall due in September, or I guess it would be October really, as they're deferred until September the 30th. Do we anticipate a higher level of default? And if we do, is there any mitigation that we can plan?
Mr. Dollar?
So I think there is obviously a higher risk of default given the economic conditions and circumstances that we're faced with. I wouldn't suggest that it's going to be significant, or at least that's what we're thinking at this moment in time. To date, I think we have about 70 residents and businesses that have taken advantage of the deferrals. And when you look across the city, it's not a huge percentage. And so in those cases where 70 residents and businesses have deferred, a portion of that may default. Quite honestly, it doesn't appear to be a significant concern. Obviously a higher risk for us, but at the end of the day, again, in a situation like this, if we did experience some higher default, we would be looking at some management on the expense side to offset that and bring us in again so that there isn't a deficit position at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. That was you've set my mind at rest somewhat there with especially regarding the low level of deferrals that have been taken up. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion on first reading of bylaw 981-20?
No.
All right. Seeing no further, call a vote. First reading for bylaw 981-20. All those members of council in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading? Councilor Van Newkirk. All those members of council, sorry, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those members of council in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All right, this time I'd like to move that council provide unanimous consent to move directly to third reading on bylaw 981-20. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading on 981-20? Councillor Stout.
So moved, your worship. Third reading.
Third reading. Here we go. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those members of council in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 And that carries unanimously, which brings us to, I don't think I've seen 5 bylaws go that fast ever. Nice when you're doing stuff that we've already discussed at length. Okay, so it brings us to item 10A, councillor inquiries and reports. So we'll start off with questions from members of council for administration, followed by members of council wishing to make a report. Do members of council have any questions of administration today? Councillor Moncalfe-Swain.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. A couple of questions for CAO. Based on the information you got right now, CAO Schwartz, how long do you expect the ECC to continue to be running out of the community centre?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Moncalfe-Swain, through the mayor to all council. That decision is being reviewed daily, if not weekly. Every Friday morning, we determine what the ECC looks like. Quite frankly, we thought we would be able to downsize this probably a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and the activity over the last couple of weeks has been pretty significant. So I don't see that happening in the near future, but it is assessed on daily and then certainly every Friday. One of the things that is considered, and we have made some switch outs. We've wanted to accommodate an illness. As you know, our planning chief had surgery last week, and the other was to facilitate ensuring that the service delivery and a bunch of changes we were doing in our operations division were facilitated from the operations division and not the ECC. So we made some switches in personnel. So we're going to continue to monitor this. The other consideration is Alberta is still, the POC is still at a level 4. We think it'd be premature for us to stand down. So hopefully in the next several weeks or the next week, we're looking forward to the information from the Alberta government this week. That'll give us a better idea of when to stand down. But thank you.
Thank you. I got a second question, John, if that's okay.
Yeah, follow up, go ahead.
Yeah, so similar line of thought. So we've obviously shut down the playgrounds in our community and used different tape to mark them off, etc. I had a question about our sports fields. And so understanding the provincial guidelines around 15 and above, but I'm just curious about what role does the municipality have with regards to community groups? So let's say one of the sporting groups, youth groups wants to start up. Maybe they want to start up during practices or whatever. do we have a role in that? Like, we're easier to shut down a playground than a field. I'm just curious what our role is with regards to sports fields in general in our community as it relates to COVID.
Thank you very much, Councilor McCoff-Swain. And you quoted it as right now, the Alberta government, no gathering of more than 15 people is allowed in one indoor or outdoor location. We ordered I think about 150 signs, which we will have tomorrow. We'll begin to put those out in our sports field that talk about closed indefinitely. As you know, they're closed until May 31st at this point in time. On May 15th, we're going to revisit that. We're following the provincial guidelines as far as the physical distancing. And our role, our municipal enforcement and our RCMP have the ability to issue summons. We've been reluctant to do that, and we're going to continue with education. I will say that my observation and the conversations I've had from RCMP and from municipal enforcement is our community is going over and above and is respecting the physical distancing. We really hope that continues. I know it's tougher. Short answer to your question is we have the ability and we will, if necessary, issue summons. But I'll be perfectly frank, we're not close to doing that. I just don't see it being a requirement in our city. I spoke to RCMP this morning. Their call volumes are probably at normal. They receive a lot of calls in the detachment of people asking, can I do this? Can I do that? The similar question you just said. We get that from a ball team say, I want to have a practice. Can we? Well, the answer is no, you can't. What we've been seeing is people have been abiding by that. So we're going to continue down that line.
Maybe a follow-up. And so I understand the group of 15, and I'll use an example that I can relate to. Let's say that the rugby team wants to play, have a practice. Can the forwards, who are less than 15 people, can they go and practice in one park and then the backs go and practice in another park? I'm just like, that's under 15 people, right? So technically that's compliant with the regulation. So I'm curious, does the city have a role? Are we proactively communicating with the groups to discourage this type of behavior? I'm just not sure what our role is with regards to that.
We would certainly discourage that type of behavior. For groups less than 15, they must maintain a 2-meter distance, and we have been out there. One of the examples I'm going to use in my update is a skateboard park, and how impressed I am that the teenagers and the groups that typically use that have been abiding by the signage and the fence. You can easily beetle under that. We've had a couple people do that. We've reached out to them. ME has reached out to them and said, hey, you can't be here. And they left. So those are all great signs for our city. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you for the clarification.
Right. Councilor Danlock, question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Stewart. For Mr. Dollar, I know in previous discussions we've had looking at anticipating a possible surplus from 2019's operating budget you were working on, gathering some numbers for us. I wonder if you could give us an update how successful you may have been able to ascertain the 2019 potential surplus from operating budget, please.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councillor Daniluk. And through a lot of great work by Mr. DeBlanco, we do have a preliminary number for council, and it's looking like the surplus, subject to any kind of audit changes that might happen, which are probably very minor in nature, if any. The surplus at the end of 2019 would be roughly about $400,000, just over $400,000. So slightly lower than recent history, I would think, but a little bit higher than I was expecting probably a month ago.
I may, Mr. to follow up then?
Well, yep.
Yeah, great work. Thank you very much. I mean, having too big a surplus is not a good way in some respects. I mean, we've overcharged, or having a deficit means we undercharge. So 400,000 doesn't sound too bad on a $42 million operating budget. So if you may, Mr. Dollar, how do we use those funds? How do we allocate, where's that money surplus? How do we allocate that? Or where does it go into? Just for clarifying my memory, please, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Sure. What you'll see May 12th when we bring the statements forward is probably a recommendation to transfer that surplus into probably the mill rate stabilization reserve. That would be the recommendation at the moment. Again, it wouldn't be a regular council meeting if I didn't plug the reserve analysis that we need to do. And so I think at that time, that we can look at whether or not we have the appropriate amounts in the reserves. And if there are some things that look like we're in a healthy position, then we can have a further conversation with council around what to do with some of those funds possibly.
Thank you. I look forward to May 12th statements. Thank you very much, Mayor Stewart and
Okay.
Mr. Dahl.
Fair enough. All right, seeing no further requests to speak, is there a members of council that wish to make a statement today? Okay, seeing none, I have a brief update on what's been going on in the last couple of weeks with the EMRB, mid-sized cities, and yeah, with the EMRB and the mid-sized cities in the province. The CIO and I continue to get onto the weekly town hall meetings. There wasn't one this week that the province puts on with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Dr. Hinshaw and various ministers. So as those transcripts keep coming out, we'll keep council up to date and informed on what the conversations are that are going on there, and we'll ship them out as they become available. It should be noted that the EMRB is starting to go back to work. There was pretty much a bit of a shutdown while municipalities worked its way through the COVID-19 pandemic problems that each municipality is facing. And so we are now, starts on Friday with our special meeting and the IRTMP task force meeting starts. So once again, we're back to work with the EMRB and starting to move our region forward and start to think our way out of the eventual recovery and resilience phases of this pandemic. And so as that work progresses, I look forward to bringing my council colleagues and administration some more updates from that. Mid-sized cities, it's been nice. We've been meeting on probably a bi-weekly basis just to keep each other informed and up to date on what's happening in our municipalities. And it's been kind of interesting to note the different approaches and different scenarios that are facing each municipality. I never thought I would have said this before, but the 93.7 tax regime that we have has actually made us fairly stable. Yeah, I know we all campaigned and talked about needing more commercial assessment to make it more viable, but honestly, in this case, 93.7 is making us fairly resilient through this process. And I'm not saying we should back off on our economic development, but a couple of happy accidents have allowed us to weather this better than perhaps our neighbors. The other major factor being that our rec center is currently closed down. So we had already taken into account those impacts of things. So we're in good shape, and our municipal colleagues in the mid-sized cities are working their way through it, and a lot of them are in good shape too. So it was nice to see. So if members of council have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll move on to the CAO.
No, good.
Okay, seeing none, moving on to the CAO.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor Stewart, members of council. I'll be brief here. We're going on a couple hours, but I've got a few things I want to make sure we get out to the community. One is Township Road 510. The repairs have begun today. We're expecting the culverts to be delivered this afternoon. So communications has either gone out or will go out. All things being equal, we're anticipating having this done by the end of the weekend. Again, all things being equal, weather certainly dependent, but it looks like we've got a good repair coming, including upsizing the culvert, so that should help improve that water situation that occurs every year. Economic development, as you're aware, and I've talked about this at our council updates, and we punted this out to community lots. Our economic development and communications team, along with our chamber, have launched the #Open in Beaumont campaign. It's been picked up extremely well, adopted by numerous storefronts and our home-based businesses in our community. AUMA has reached out to us today, and it will be featuring this program in one of their newsletters. It's got a whole bunch of moving parts to it, but the message is the same. It's simple, and that's to support our local businesses, especially in this time of this economic downturn and this economic catastrophe is the way it's better to be explained. So there'll be more information about that, and I'll provide more details on Thursday when we do our council briefing. Next week is Mental Health Awareness Week, so I do a shout out to that. Something that's very important to this community and this organization is something we take very seriously. I talked a little bit about the skateboard park as an example of the physical distancing in our community when I talked to municipal enforcement and RCMP, and I just want to reiterate that. I think our city is doing an exceptional job. And I want to thank our residents for that, and for council for promoting and to continue to promote that across our city. We have one case here in Beaumont that was announced 2-3 days ago. We have not had a second, so that's a great indicator. I talked at a council update, and obviously can't share details, but if you remember, I shared that Dr. Henshaw was going to send us a precursor of announcements of outbreaks in facilities or workplaces in municipalities, so that we had that information before it went public. I received the second one of those spreadsheets yesterday, and it's alarming. You look at the Calgary area and the healthcare facilities, there are over 30 of those facilities that are identified as having an outbreak. That's not one person, that's several. Some of them have 90 plus. That's 30 plus in the Calgary area as opposed to 3 in Edmonton. Calgary is just getting hammered, that whole southern region, of course, with Cargill and the poultry plants, and it's a terrible situation for them. But that's very alarming. We're getting off very fortunate. One other comment, and then I'll stop, is I saw a quote from Dr. Henshaw, who's just doing a fabulous job. I saw it today on Twitter, and I thought it was worth repeating. She says, "We will get through this. There will be an easing of the restrictions when it's safe to do so. Please stay the course and protect your friends, family, and neighbors as they are protecting you." It goes back to the warmer weather and people were wanting to get out, and the idea of the flat lining. I sent that graph to council a few days ago, which shows the Edmonton area was a peak in the beginning of April, and then we have pretty much flatlined. But the caution there is that they're going to ease those restrictions when it's safe to do so, and that's something that we need to keep in our forefront. Physical distancing is our biggest lever in combating this, and we got to continue to do that. So in closing, thank you to our community. I think we're doing a fabulous job, and we need to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, CEO, for the update. We have no items of correspondence. Do members of council have a notice of motion today?
No.
Okay, seeing none, I do have one. I'd like to bring a notice of motion that council direct administration to develop a land development and purchasing strategy, including a policy that would outline under what conditions or circumstances the city would seek to purchase properties and or service land. All right, so we have one closed session item to deal with in item 14A before adjournment. Can I get a member of council to move us into closed session? Councilor Barnhart?
So moved, your worship.
All those in favor of moving into closed session, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate all members of council and administration working hard today. Just for members of the public, we've just completed our in-camera session and have come out of in-camera. There being no business arising from the in-camera session or no motions to be had. At this point, we will call this meeting adjourned, and I will look forward to seeing everybody at our briefing on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.